Now, if there's anything that every Christian who knows one Greek word knows, it's that ecclesia means church. The only
Mhm.
problem with this is that, like most things that everyone knows, it's not very true. So, we have these two words in ancient Greek, ancient Jewish Greek, synagogue and ecclesia, which
Mhm.
are in most translations given as synagogue and church, using our modern religious notions. The problem is that's not what they meant in the ancient world and in the ancient context. And there are many, many ways of showing this, and all sorts of examples from both the Messianic writings or the New Testament and also other literature, Greek literature of the time. But I just have two quick examples to illustrate this point, and they bring us towards the ideology or the bias of translators. So Nick said before that he doesn't think there's a conspiracy, and by and large, I agree with him. But what I do think there is ideological bias, and you probably agree with me on that, Nick. So
Yeah.
here's an example of it. So Acts 19. Here's the ESV. But when they recognized that he was a Jew, for about 2 hours, they all cried out with one voice, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." And when he had said these things, he dismissed the assembly. He dismissed the ecclesia. Now, if every Christian knows that ecclesia means church, why doesn't this translation say he dismissed the church? The fact is that there's a very inconsistent translation of the word ecclesia in Christian translations to this day, along the same lines of what Nick was talking about with Sela, the rib in the side, but probably with more serious consequences in this case. Maybe, debatably. But in this case, it's not a Christian assembly, and it's not an assembly that can be in any way made out to be a Christian assembly. So the word church is taken out. But this begs the question of why that is the word that's used in the ancient text. And the answer is, of course, because it didn't mean church. It's not equivalent to the modern English word church. Another example, also of very grave historical consequences, and also the result of bias. And Ellie, I know you've written about this one a fair amount and taught about it. In Revelation, it says in a couple places it uses this phrase. I've taken Revelation 2:9 from the King James Version. The blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the Synagogue of Satan. Now it's translated as synagogue. It's really interesting because it says right there they're not Jews.
Mhm.
But synagogue is the word for a Jewish religious assembly in our modern language. In the ancient language, it was just an assembly or a gathering. In fact, the word ecclesia was used as often or maybe more often than synagogue to refer to a Jewish community gathering place. So it's inappropriate to make this association of synagogue to synagogue and ecclesia to church. That's not how the words were lined up in the first century. So in Revelation, it's again a bias, an anti-Judaic bias, scholars would say, that makes them choose the word synagogue, which to everyone says this is a Jewish thing. This is talking about Judaism, even in a place where it says that they are not Jews. So it's really bizarre, and this particular verse had very significant consequences throughout history, and is one of the verses that interpretations that is most responsible for even very violent anti-Semitism through medieval and modern times.
And it's possible that you have a next slide that I don't see, but if I was writing a next slide, I would just say, and of course there is a in James, the verse that you well know, that when a man comes into your assembly in the poor man's clothing, don't put him in the back.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we're translating this as an assembly, even though it's using exact the same word, synagogue.
Yes.
So if it's satanic, it's a synagogue, but if it's congregation, then it's an assembly. So anyways, but those are some of the very serious issue. To what degree serious? Well, to degree that I think it could be argued that had we gotten this right, there may not be a Jewish Holocaust. Obviously, there's a lot more to how the European Jewish Holocaust took place. It's not only that, but it's But look, it was unfortunately a Christian nation made up of Catholics and Protestants. Obviously, they're evil leaders, not all of them, that actually perpetrated the horrible evil of Holocaust, against the Jews. Not only the Jews, but the Jews in particular, in at the center of this. And had those things were grasped early on in a way that it would set them up in a trajectory that would have been different, who knows what kind of things could have been avoided. So those things are, I think those are not trivial things. I think those things are, translation is a very, very dangerous enterprise. Very, very dangerous enterprise.